Many years ago, I visited a friend of mine. He had a son named Bishal. While I was chatting with my friend, his son walked into the room. After asking him about his school and other activities, I said to him, Bishal, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Bishal responded, I want to be like my father. His father is a businessman. He's a dealer in spare parts for automobiles. And so I asked Bishal, do you want to be a businessman like your father? Do you want to be a dealer in spare parts for automobiles? Bishal replied, no, I want to be kind like my father. Of all the beautiful qualities that his father possessed, Bishal picked out, according to me, the most important, the most significant, the most striking quality, the kindness of his father. And the reason why Bishal was able to pick out this kindness was because his father had manifested this kindness, had made this kindness known through his words and his actions. However, the father could only make this kindness known through his words and actions because it was a kindness that was in his heart, in his being. It was Francis of Assisi who is supposed to have said, preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. In other words, Francis was asking us to preach not so much through our words, but through our actions. And these actions, Francis knew, spoke louder than words. It seemed that Francis was influenced to make this statement by what Jesus says in the gospel text of today. It is so often true that actions speak louder than words, and a person is known by the action that he or she performs. However, it must be remembered that the person's actions and words flow from the person's heart, and thus the primary focus must be on the heart. The German mystic Meister Eckhart summarizes, it seems to me, or paraphrases what Jesus says in the gospel text of today when he says, you should bother less about what you ought to do and think more, reflect more about what you ought to be. Because if your being were good, then your works would shine forth brightly. This is a beautiful summary even of the first reading of today. Addressing his disciples through a proverb and parables, Jesus explicates what it means to be a true disciple, a true follower of the truth. The proverb about the blind leading the blind is a challenge to the disciples to be better qualified than those they seek to serve. This qualification has nothing to do with degrees or diplomas, but everything to do with trying to be like Jesus. In so doing, they will not look for the faults in others, but will focus on the positives in them, and at the same time constantly strive to become aware of their own shortcomings. This awareness of one's weakness will make them humble and also more accepting of others. Then truly there will be a synchrony between what they say and what they do, the being and the action, the words and what is done. The former will inevitably be exposed by the latter. Discipleship therefore requires not just good deeds, It requires integrity and a purity of heart, such as one sees in Jesus himself. A similar point is made in the first reading of today when Sirach points out that a person is known through the fruit that he or she produces. Of course, Sirach says, the fruit produced is a result of what lies within. This is because what is seen about a person externally is what that person is from within. The speech and actions of a person convey what lies in his or her heart and mind. There is a tendency among so many of us today to focus too much on the action and on the doing that we forget about the being. If we were to count the number of miracles that Jesus worked as narrated by the synoptic gospels, the number totals around 30. In a 3-year ministry of Jesus, this works out to an average of 10 miracles a year, or just about 1 miracle every month, which is not very much. Be that as it may, Jesus is not worshipped and adored today because of his miracles, important as they have been to his whole ministry, an integral part of his ministry. Jesus is worshipped today because he dared to be good, he dared to stand up for the truth, he dared to even die for the truth. And he could show that in his action of death on the cross, because his being was unafraid, his being was pure, his being was something which he focused on. When Peter, who formed that inner group of 3 disciples, summarizes the life of Jesus for Cornelius and his family at Caesarea, he does so in a few words, namely, you have heard about Jesus of Nazareth, how he went about doing good. In other words, Peter focused like Vishal, not on the external deeds of Jesus, but on what Jesus was from within. Because Jesus was good within, everything that Jesus said, everything that Jesus did would also be good. In the second reading, Paul gives us an eschatological reason for focusing on being rather than doing. The present body, Paul says, is perishable and mortal. We can put on imperishably and also immortality by being resolute in doing good consistently, and through this excel in the work of the Lord. The example of Jesus, whose whole being was good, must be our constant motivation. If we follow the example of Jesus, then people will say about us who profess to be the disciples of Jesus today, see how they go about doing good. Our proclamation must not be so much through our words, it must be through our actions. Will you proclaim truth? Will you proclaim the Lord through your actions today?